If you believe that only people who go to the gym can lose belly fat, you're not alone. This idea has been repeated so many times that it's become an absolute truth. The problem is that it doesn't explain why so many people make an effort, try to work out whenever they can, and still see no change in their belly. For many adults, between work, family, and exhaustion, the gym simply doesn't fit into their routine, and that leads to frustration, guilt, and a feeling of failure. But science shows something different. Exercise is not the switch that starts burning abdominal fat in every case. Before that happens, the body needs to be in a favorable metabolic state. That's exactly what we're going to clarify here, calmly, clearly, and based on solid scientific evidence.
After a while trying to lose weight, many people start to think the problem is a lack of willpower. They cut back a little here, try to move more there, promise themselves they'll start on Monday, and nothing changes, especially around the belly. It becomes exhausting, not just for the body, but for the mind too. That feeling of always starting over sets in, as if the effort is never enough. What almost no one explains is that this frustration is very common, especially after your 30s or 40s. Metabolism changes, stress increases, sleep gets worse, and the body starts to respond differently. It's not laziness or a lack of discipline. Many times, it's the body trying to protect itself. Understanding this changes everything because it opens the door to smarter solutions, and that's exactly where the conversation starts to move forward.
There's a very strong myth that belly fat burning starts with exercise. The logic sounds simple. If you move more, your body burns more fat. But in real life, it doesn't always work that way. When the body is under constant stress, sleeping poorly, or dealing with silent inflammation, it goes into defense mode. In that state, the body prioritizes storing energy, not releasing it. That's why for many people, working out without adjusting the rest of their routine leads to little result and a lot of exhaustion. Exercise becomes just another source of stress instead of a solution. Science shows that before focusing on physical effort, it's necessary to correct the internal signals that tell the body whether it's safe to burn fat or not. This shift in perspective is the first real step to unlocking the process.
Ever feel drained halfway through your workout? I used to struggle with energy and slow recovery. Then I found this fast-acting nitric oxide booster. It increases nitric oxide by 200% in just 20 minutes. Just mix, drink, and get moving, so simple. I noticed better circulation and more stamina almost instantly. If you want quicker results, this is a game changer. Try it now and feel the difference in your next session.
When belly fat seems extremely stubborn, there are almost always a few blockages happening at the same time inside the body. One of the main ones is chronic stress. High cortisol levels signal to the body that it's not the right time to spend energy, but to store it, and the belly ends up being the preferred place for that storage. Another important factor is poor sleep. Sleeping too little or poorly disrupts hormones related to hunger, fullness, and metabolism, creating an unfavorable environment for fat burning. Add to that silent inflammation, common in people who eat a lot of ultra-processed foods or live at a constant fast pace, and the body starts operating in a constant state of alert. I always say this here in my videos. Ultra-processed foods are enemy number one when it comes to your health, so be careful with these foods. Finally, there's insulin. When insulin levels stay constantly high, they prevent fat from being released. These factors don't act alone, they reinforce each other. Understanding this helps explain why belly fat doesn't respond to physical effort alone, and it sets the stage for understanding why the body protects this area so strongly.
Belly fat isn't there by accident. From a biological perspective, it works as a strategic reserve. When the body senses constant signals of threat, such as stress, lack of sleep, or inflammation, it understands that it needs protection, and the abdominal area becomes a priority for storing energy. That's why even when weight goes down in other areas, the belly often seems unchanged. The body only starts releasing this fat when it receives clear signals that the internal environment is safe. Until that happens, it resists. This isn't stubbornness or lack of effort, it's a survival mechanism. Understanding this changes how you look at the process. Instead of trying to force the body to respond, it makes more sense to create conditions where it feels comfortable letting go of that reserve. And that's exactly what leads to the next step: true metabolic unlocking. If you struggle to lose belly fat and recognize some of these signs, leave a comment below and share what has been affecting your fat loss the most. There's one factor that almost no one associates with belly fat, yet it has a huge impact: sleep. Sleeping too little or sleeping poorly completely disrupts the body's hormonal signals. Cortisol levels rise, insulin sensitivity drops, and the body shifts into a constant state of alert. In that state, burning fat, especially belly fat, stops being a priority. The body works in cycles. When those cycles are respected, metabolism works in your favor. When they're disrupted, the body starts conserving energy, and there's no way to fix that with willpower alone. Without a minimally balanced biological rhythm, the body simply stalls. Many people notice real changes in their belly without changing their diet or exercise routine, just by regularizing their sleep schedule. It's not magic, it's basic physiology. Creating a more predictable internal environment is an essential step to unlocking processes that once seemed impossible. And that leads us to another rarely discussed but decisive point. Without even realizing it, many people live with a constant level of inflammation in the body. Not the acute inflammation that causes pain and swelling, but a low-grade silent inflammation that builds up over time. And belly fat is one of the first areas to feel that impact. When the body is inflamed, it shifts into defense mode. In that state, burning fat stops being a priority because the body believes it needs to protect itself. Constant stress, irregular sleep, repetitive eating patterns, and even prolonged inactivity all contribute to this condition. The good news is that small, everyday changes can already reduce this inflammation. Simple adjustments like improving sleep, adding more movement and variation throughout the day, and reducing constant stress spikes create a more favorable internal environment. From there, the belly starts to respond. And there's still one final important point that ties this whole puzzle together.
After all of this, it becomes clear that belly fat is not an isolated problem, nor a lack of effort. Most of the time, it's a sign that the body has entered protection mode. And when the body's protecting itself, it holds on to energy, stores fat, and slows down processes that once seemed natural. What truly unlocks belly fat loss is not a single trick or a miracle solution. It's about creating a safer, more predictable, and more balanced internal environment. Better sleep, less constant stress, more movement throughout the day, even light movement, and fewer repeated stressors on the body. When these pillars start to align, the body changes its behavior. It stops fighting against you and begins working with you. And that's when many people are surprised. The belly starts to respond without the gym, without extreme diets, and without suffering. Real transformation happens when you stop forcing the body and start respecting how it actually works.
One of the biggest mistakes is continuing to insist on strategies that clearly aren't working. The body gives signals all the time, but many people ignore them and prefer to believe the problem is a lack of discipline. I've seen this up close, people blaming themselves, pushing harder, cutting even more food, trying to force results, and the belly unchanged. When you keep using the wrong approach, the body interprets it as another attack, more stress, more cortisol, more abdominal fat retention. It's not stubbornness, it's protection.
The body is simply trying to survive the environment you've created. Understanding this changes everything. Instead of asking, "What else can I cut?" the question becomes, "What is overloading my body?" That shift in mindset is freeing, and very often it's exactly this adjustment that finally unlocks what once seemed impossible to change. After understanding all of this, a common question comes up. Where do you start without getting lost again? The answer is simpler than it seems. The first step isn't changing everything. It's choosing one single adjustment that reduces the body's overload. Just one. It could be sleeping a little better, organizing your schedule more clearly, standing up and moving more often throughout the day, or easing that constant pressure for fast results. Small decisions send signals of safety to the body, and when the body receives that signal, it responds. I've seen changes happen this way, almost quietly. The person didn't radically change their routine, but they stopped fighting their own body. Within a few weeks, the abdominal area began to give in, not because of extreme sacrifice, but because the internal environment finally allowed it. That's the realistic starting point. Less war, more strategy. This is how burning belly fat stops being a distant dream and becomes a natural consequence. If this video helped you see abdominal fat in a different way, here's a simple request. Leave a like. It really helps the channel keep bringing serious content without empty promises or fear-based messaging. If you made it this far, you've probably already tried several things that didn't work. So go ahead and subscribe to the channel, because the next videos follow this same approach, explaining how the body works in a clear, realistic way that actually applies to real life. And leave a comment below. Which of these points made the most sense to you? Sleep, stress, inflammation, or daily routine? Sometimes just putting that into words is the first step toward unlocking real change. See you in the next video.